All right, how are we doing today, folks? J.R. Dukes here with J.R. Dukes Law, and I appreciate you joining me today. Those of you that follow my channel know that occasionally I like to talk about prenuptial agreements because I firmly believe prenuptial agreements can save us all a lot of grief. So if you're thinking, gee, do I really need a prenuptial agreement? And what can a prenuptial agreement do for me? You've tuned into the right video this time. Now, you might be wondering why should you listen to me concerning your need for a prenuptial agreement? Well, the fact that I am a non-attorney and the fact that I have many life experiences equate to one simple conclusion. I am uniquely qualified to tell you the truth, the absolute truth concerning any and all matters involving the law. Why? Because I don't have a law license to lose if I tell you something that might not be exactly what the Bar Association wants to put out publicly. So I can pretty well say whatever I want to say. I can share my experiences with you without worrying about any kind of retribution, so to speak. My goal is to help you and to help you live the best life you can by understanding the law and all things to do with the law. Another reason that I am the person to turn to when it comes to prenuptial agreement is because of my life experiences. I, unfortunately, have been married 3 separate times. Yes, you heard me correctly. 3 separate times. What I will tell you is being married 3 times, I was fortunate enough to have either a postnuptial agreement or a prenuptial agreement each and every time I was married. The first time I was married, I was 19 years of age. I did not have a prenuptial agreement, which obviously was a mistake. As I've got more experience with the law into my early 20s, I knew that a nuptial agreement of some sort was an absolute must. So what did I do? I sat down, I calmly talked with my then spouse, and we entered into what is called a postnuptial agreement. Post means after, pre means before. So a post-nuptial agreement means after marriage. Nuptial, of course, meaning marriage. And a prenuptial agreement simply means something you do before you get married. We were fortunate enough to be married for approximately 8 years. And when we divorced, I was able to maintain control and custody of my 4 children that I had with her at that time. And I kept substantially all of my assets. The second time I was married to a lovely woman, and we were married 15 years, if you can believe that. 15 years, you heard me right, and we had 3 natural children of our own, so that gave me a total of 7. We divorced, as I said, 15 years after we were together. We were together approximately 16 years, but we did have a prenuptial agreement. I would not marry without a prenuptial agreement. I made sure that she had her own lawyer, I had my own lawyer. We drew up a prenuptial agreement, made sure both of us understood everything. We made sure that everything was fully disclosed as far as the assets and the liabilities. That saved me again, because when we divorced, I continued to raise all of my children, and I kept overwhelmingly the vast majority of my assets. And at that time, I had a bunch of dough because I have ran businesses all over the United States. It is very important that you understand, frankly speaking, that we all have a need for a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement. Finally, I was married for the 3rd time. Before we got married, we had a prenuptial agreement drawn up. I made sure that we both understood the terms of the agreement. She understood the terms of the agreement. We disclosed our assets just like you're supposed to do. And of course, we had a much shorter marriage. I believe it was about 6 years in total. And thank God I got a prenuptial agreement, or that would have been extremely painful. I literally walked away with almost everything except 1 car. That is not a joke. Now, of course, we did not have any kids in common, and the children that I've raised from previous marriages were already basically leaving the house at that point. They were adults, so it was a non-issue. But yes, you heard it correctly. I kept vastly every single asset I have, and I literally gave her 1 car. I think it was, 5 years old, something like that. It was a decent car, but that's all that I gave. I was able to keep my home, the money I had in the bank, my cash, any and all assets that I had in my possession at that time. The fact that I had this prenuptial agreement made all the difference. If I have not made the decisions years ago to make sure I had prenups and postnuptial agreements, I would have been in a very serious, a much different situation than I am right now. So please learn from my experiences. I don't care what your situation is. Sit down with your soon-to-be spouse, negotiate a prenuptial agreement. Let me ask you this. What does a person deserve when they were able to be married 3 times? They were able to keep their children from 2 different women, raise their children, love their children, make sure they were there with their children every day, and keep substantially all of their assets. I tell you what you call that person. You call that person me. That's a person that deserves a medal. That's what the hell I deserve, because I know the formula to help you keep your assets and to protect you from probably one of the biggest risks you have in your life, and that is marriage. I know that's not popular to say. I know we all want to get married, and I know we want to think it's for life. And for you, my friends, I actually hope it works out like that. Statistically, depending on how you view the statistics, it's basically a coin flip. All I can tell you is you need to sit down and negotiate a prenup agreement way before you get married. It is extremely important that you do so. I did come across an article in Kiplinger.com magazine, the online version of Kiplinger, and this is an article written by an attorney. This individual's name is John M. Gorlaka. I hope I said his name correctly. Prenup agreements and confidentiality agreements are particularly important for the following people getting married. Now, he's talking about prenuptial agreements and marry it, essentially merge it with a confidentiality agreement, which I definitely advise you to do. Basically, a confidentiality agreement is exactly what it says. It's an agreement that you're going to keep matters between the two of you private and not allow it to come into the public domain. He recommends for those with children from a prior relationship, for older couples, people getting married with significant assets prior to marriage, people or public figures seeking to keep such matters private, and people seeking to protect their partner from his or her debts and liabilities, those seeking to protect themselves from their partner's debts. Very, very important. Even in my situation, one of the major benefits to having a prenuptial agreement was that my risky business activities, when you're in business, it's a risk. When you have a lot of vehicles on the road, driving around with employees in them, that is a major risk. You could always, unfortunately, have some kind of claim come up against your company, and it would end up walking through whatever kind of company value you have, and it stick to you personally. If you have a prenuptial agreement, you can go ahead and shield your spouse from your potential liabilities. If you were to get caught up and basically hammered by some kind of lawsuit, your spouse would be able to basically walk free. Their assets would be intact and you would not have to worry about it. Again, this article is in Kiplinger.com, and I appreciate this attorney writing this article. I thought it was a pretty good article, but I specifically wanted to make sure I pointed those particular individuals out that he recommends have a prenuptial agreement. As I said earlier, listen, I recommend everybody have a prenuptial agreement. So if you're going to get married, if you're thinking about taking the plunge, then you need a prenuptial agreement. Make no mistake about it. Hey, if you need any help or have any questions for me, always reach out to me at reachjrdukes@gmail.com. That is reachjrdukes@gmail.com. I am here to help you as always. I appreciate you joining me for today's episode. Always remember to keep that mind free and never give up, my friends. I am J.R. Dukes.